Welcome back to Where Are All My Friends? First and foremost, I am so sorry for the delay in episodes. I have a really crazy story that kind of made me hit pause on a whole lot of life. So, I was on tour with Carly Rae Jepsen a few weeks ago. Incredible full summer tour, absolutely amazing. And completely outside of the tour, we were in Nashville. I had an accident and I broke my leg. And it was early in the morning. I really didn't think anything of it. I thought that I had just dislocated it. Finally, by like 3 o'clock, it still hurt. And I went to urgent care. They took x-rays and they're like, dude, you broke your femur. You have to go to the emergency room. You have to get surgery. So I was really fucked up. It was really scary. It really sucked, but everything is better now or getting better. I got surgery. It seems to be going well. Nothing but love for everyone who reached out to me, helped me, took care of me, anything. Definitely felt the love. Definitely a huge reminder to not take anything for granted and to appreciate everything you have. So that's that. We're on the mend. I'm working on getting more guests. It was very hard because I normally record these in person and I was kind of just stuck in Florida after I recovered or after I got the surgery in Nashville. That kind of brings me to how I have the next guest, which is really cool. So I'm down here in Florida recovering, and a very close friend of mine, Frank Lepore, who is a professional Magic the Gathering player. He streams a whole bunch on Twitch. One day we meet up to get food, and he's like, yo, my friend Dan's is in town from New York. She's visiting her family. She does a bunch of music stuff. We should all hang out and get food. So I'm like, yeah, for sure. We get together, we get food, and Dan's ends up having this incredible story and being this amazing artist who's done so much. So as we're talking, it was just one of those things of like, yo, we should do a podcast episode. I've been stuck here. I haven't been able to do any, and you have this amazing story, and we're here. So the next day, we get together. We intentionally didn't talk too much about music so it would stay organic. And then we recorded this podcast, and it was awesome. I knew from the first day that she had a good story, but I didn't know just how good it would be and how many levels and layers there would be. So if you aren't familiar, Dan's artist project is called Computer Magic. And I guess, to put it short, I'd call it synth pop, kind of like an experimental electronic side to it, heavily influenced by like analog synths. And we get into it all in the episode, but it's just incredible. She grew up in New York, she had a music blog and would write about music and just obsess over music, then got into DJing in New York, then actually took a break from that, comes to Florida, and started writing music completely by ear. No formal training, had a little bit of time in Florida and just started messing around and was like, wait a minute, you can write really good music. And her mom kind of had to point that out to her. I don't want to give too much away because the story is awesome. But she starts writing music. It's really good. It gets this online cult following. She knew how to spread it just from writing a blog herself. A Japanese label takes interest in it. She ends up releasing a bunch of music on this Japanese label and like becomes actually huge in Japan. It's just this amazing story. And the fact that she's self-taught and the fact that just all of it is just this vision of somebody who just loves music. It was an incredible story. And I loved that we really didn't know each other. We just met up and it was just this serendipitous thing. So talk about a silver lining. It sucks to break a leg. It sucks to be down and out. But if it hadn't been for that, we never would have met and we wouldn't have this incredible episode. So I'm really glad that at least that came of it because she's really cool and I'm really excited to tell this story. With that said, let's get into it. All right, so damn, I love this because we just met each other.
We did.
Through a crazy serendipitous moment of friends.
Yeah.
And we both ended up being some part of music. So we get to talking and it was just like, wait a minute, you do cool music stuff? I have a podcast around music stuff? So we met through our mutual friend, Frank Lepore, who streams Magic the Gathering. And you met him because you also stream video games and had a mutual friend named Matt, right?
Yeah, so I stream video games, and my friend Matt found out about this, and he was like, "Whoa, you stream? The only other person I know that streams is this guy Frank. You should watch his stream." And so he showed me it, and then I just started watching it, and then I came down to Florida to visit my mom. And we just kind of met up, and then you and I met, and
I was here randomly because I broke my leg on tour.
yeah.
And here we are now recording a podcast, which is crazy. So normally what I do, and we talked about this too, where we intentionally didn't deep dive on either side of what we do because we wanted it to just stay organic.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to hear a lot more of your story as a musician.
Okay.
But on my side with the podcast, normally what I do is like, I just love to hear like the come up story, like what got you to where you're at now, like those pivotal moments where it's like, oh damn, this connected to this, all of those things. But before we get into that, for anybody that doesn't know you, just like a super quick introduction of who you are and what you do and what your project is.
Okay, so my name is Dans, and I make music under the moniker of Computer Magic. I've been making music since, I want to say, like, the later part of 2010 up until now, so almost 10-ish years.
10 years.
Yeah. I started, it was kind of an accident when I learned that I could make music at all, but now it's my career, and I sometimes make decent money from it, and so that's my living now.
Enough to live.
And I'm a musician, so.
Okay, cool. I feel like that's the perfect intro, and obviously like we'll get way more into it. But then, okay, so cool. So take me back, like, I guess the most basic question is, where are you from?
So I'm from upstate New York.
Okay.
About like an hour and 45 minutes northwest-ish from New York City.
Okay.
Yeah, from an area called the Catskills.
Yep.
If you're not familiar with upstate New York, I'd say the town that most people generally know is Woodstock. So like I grew up next to the Woodstock site.
Okay, cool.
So in the middle of nowhere, basically.
That works. Yeah. And then we were talking about this because, like, here we are in Florida and we have family in Florida. So did you spend most of your youth in that area, or did you move around, or, like, how long were you there?
So I lived in upstate New York until I graduated high school.
Oh, okay. So you were there for, like, your childhood.
Yeah. My parents, my mom, my stepdad had a condo in, like, Madeira Beach area that I'd go to when I was, like, 14-ish. So I grew up like coming to Florida sometimes, and then once I graduated high school, my mom was just like, I don't want to deal with the snow anymore, and she moved to Florida full time. But I've only really ever lived in New York State, really, except I moved to Florida briefly for like 6 months or something. But,
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, yeah, New York has been life.
yeah, always.
Because now you're in the city, but you you finished high school upstate,
Yes.
and then did you pretty much go to the city right after that?
Right. After I graduated, I went to Hunter College.
Oh, right. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. Went to Hunter College briefly.
Mm-hmm.
Did not do well in college. Didn't pay attention. But was basically, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And so.
I was just going to ask that. Like, do you think that, like, you just didn't care about college, or you could tell enough that it just wasn't what you cared about?
It was just being in New York City, so I had to. Hunter didn't have dormitories, or like they had dorms, but you had to apply for them, and there weren't many. So if you didn't get into a dorm, you had to find an apartment, and rent was, I mean, compared to now, it's not expensive, but it was like expensive for like a teenager, and so I would work at a restaurant all the time. And I started to DJ, and I was like going out and DJing, and
so this is, I know this is a dumb question, but Hunter College is
it's in Manhattan.
Oh, it's in directly Manhattan.
Yeah, it's on like 68th Street.
Okay, so it's in the city.
It's a city college.
Okay.
That's part of the reason why I went. It's like I think I was like into graphic design a little bit in high school, and I wanted to go to like Parsons, but those schools were just like too expensive, and so Hunter College was a city college, And I went, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I was just working a lot to afford rent. And my intention was, or I was telling you the other day,
Yeah.
that my intention was to just like go over the PowerPoint presentations at home and show up for the midterms.
Oh, you had a whole plan, yeah, because you like.
I had a whole plan, but I never did show up for the midterms. And then the report card came to my parents, and they were like, and they had helped me, like, not necessarily paying for my rent, but like helping me go to school. And when they got my report card, they were like, we are not going to do this. And I was like, I mean, of course, like I get that. And so it's like, all right, I'm just going to I just kind of was floating around, just like working at restaurants and DJing.
Well, yeah, you said
for a
that, and
while,
that caught my attention. So even in school, just to like keep things going and to have money, you started working restaurants, but then DJing.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, before I moved to the city, I had a music blog.
Oh, what?
I had a music blog that was like, are you familiar with the Hype Machine?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay, so like I had this music blog, and I remember at the time I was like a member of this website called Oink, which was this like weird torrenting site where like it was like the best like you could only put songs on there if they were like 320 kilobytes per second, and like
Okay.
the artwork was there, and it was like people in the industry were using the site, and I was like just a nerd like on all these like bands forums and stuff, and someone had sent me an invite to this site, and so I was like, find like all this like just music that not everybody had access to, posted on my blog, and it would get like top in the Hype Machine.
Whoa,
And then
yeah, because Hype Machine would pull blogs. Like, I don't even know how that algorithm works.
So yeah, they just kind of like scoured these blogs, and then whatever MP3s they would post,
Yeah.
just Hype Machine would play.
That's crazy you say that, because there was
Yeah.
that time period, probably like 2008-ish,
Yeah.
where I found so much music off Hype Machine
Oh,
because
yeah.
blogs were so relevant.
That back then, yeah, that's like, I mean, like myself, like I was always going on blogs, and I would like write reviews and stuff.
Whoa.
Like I remember for English class, for like extra credit, I was like writing for this friend that I had met online. I was like writing reviews of albums for his blog, and for extra credit, I would like write a music review and give it to my
Whoa.
English teacher, and he was like, "Oh, that's so cool."
What
Like
kind of genres? Like, did you gravitate towards anything specifically, or were you everywhere?
I was like everywhere, like Animal Collective I'd listen to.
Yo.
But like I was like into like, I look at my old blog posts, like I was into like Leonard Cohen as a kid. Like I was just on the internet all the time looking up music that I liked. I was like in class with like one earbud in all day long listening to music.
Whoa.
And
So it was there, like your love for music.
well, I was like I'd be upset, like if I liked the Beatles, I'd be like, okay, well now I have to listen to every single Beatles record. Like I was just like obsessive. I think that's just my personality, like I become obsessive with things. But like,
Did you have other things like that, or like did music stand
just
out
like,
of like,
it
wait,
was just
I'm in?
just music really. But with that blog, when I'd moved to the city, like because I was on, this was like back in the MySpace days, so
Yeah.
like I knew the cool parties in the city like before I had moved down there. And I approached the DJs on MySpace, and I was like, hey, you know, I'm Dan's. Like, even back then, my nickname was like Danzy. I shortened it to Dan's. It's like more adult. But,
you know, you grow up, you shorten it to
yeah.
Dan's, as you do.
But I would approach these DJs and these parties and be like, hey, I have this music blog. I'm going to be in the city. I'd like to be a guest DJ. Like, I didn't even know
Whoa.
like how to do it, but I was like, I'll just go and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And when I was 18, it was my first DJ gig. And I remember I had like, back then, it was CDJs, which I think people still use now, but with like thumb drives. But I had like burned CDs of like all the songs I was going to play. And my first DJ set was all like this super rare like stuff and like B-sides and all this like, you know, just stuff that was new.
Yeah.
And I remember playing, and like the first night, the other DJ was like, do you have anything that people know? And I was like, no. But then after that, I was like, okay, so if you DJ, this is what you have to do. Like that was like the first time I had like a cocktail. Like was that like
Whoa.
my first DJ gig when I was 18. Like
yeah.
but so my life was in the city was I started DJing eventually, like 2 or 3 nights a week,
Yeah.
and like having my own parties.
Whoa, really?
For a bunch of years till I turned 21.
Yeah.
And I remember on my 21st birthday, I was like, I don't want to, it's like, I'm done with like this lifestyle.
Really?
And that's when I moved to Florida to take a break.
Oh my God.
When I was like 21, and that's when I I taught myself how to make Ableton. I'm like jumping ahead, but like
no, that's crazy because
yeah.
we were talking about that little piece yesterday. So
Yeah.
that fills in such a piece for me, and that blows my mind because that obviously explains like you've had a love for music for so long.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
writing and listening and becoming obsessed with finding everything you could.
Yeah.
And then at such an early age, you think you're going to go to school. It's kind of whatever. Don't find anything you connect.
Yeah.
But then you find DJing and you find this scene in the city.
Yeah.
And that's what, 3 years? 2 or 3 years? Where
18, 19, 20. Yeah, like 3-ish years, 3-4 years almost.
To the point where you become so comfortable with it and like do it enough to at 21 wanting to get away from it.
Yeah, I was, well, just the lifestyle in general of, it's funny because I was going to say never seeing the sun, but like now, like I'll stay up doing, like not necessarily drinking, but like working on music or something.
Yeah, because that scene like, I actually don't know that scene, but I can only imagine. Because, like, parties and stuff don't start till late.
New York, it's not till later.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, it's exhausting. And I would see, like, people older than me who had been, like, doing this life for very long. And I was like, I don't want to be, like, an older partying, like, DJ. Like, I don't know. Like, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was just, like, I remember waking up one morning and I was like, I need to figure out what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I still at that point, like I still loved music, but I didn't want to be a DJ forever. And at this point, I didn't know I could make music. And my thing was like, well, maybe graphic design. I was really into movies. And when I was a kid, I would like write like stories.
Oh, cool.
Stuff. And I was like, maybe I be a screenwriter. Like I had no idea.
So you always had like a creative outlet.
Definitely always creative, but just not focused yet on what thing.
And then my last question on the DJ thing is, did you get to a point where it was like somewhat successful? Like were you making enough money where you could have kept going with it?
Not really. It was like enough to just get by paying my rent.
Okay.
But I mean, I remember days when I would have, just enough that day. I'd be like, all right, well, I know if I get a buttered bagel, that's 75 cents. And I know and I was also like working at this time, like restaurants and retail and stuff. I was like, I know I've got this enough to get to the train. And it was like, I didn't want to. So it was like I was getting by, but not comfortably.
It wasn't like you had enough of a taste of success where you're like, this is going to be really hard to leave because the money's so good. You were just like, I don't know if this is going to be the life.
No, and I wasn't like releasing. Yeah, I was just like a small DJ. Like I wasn't like somebody like Diplo, for instance, or like Calvin Harris makes their own remixes and stuff like that. I was just like, there was bars that I would DJ at like every week or whatever. And like, I was kind of like, just like curating the music at these places.
So you were basically like almost bringing your blog to life where you'd find all of this incredible music and then you'd just go DJ and play cool stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I still had the blog at the time.
Can I know what it was called?
Yeah, I'll bring it up for you later. But
okay. Cool.
It looks really bad now because all the images were hosted on PhotoBucket.
Oh,
and
so
like it's just like looks like PhotoBucket now. It's still there. It's like a blog spot.
Oh, okay.
But I'll show it to you.
All right, tight. Okay, so then Florida. So you get to a point where you're just like, I'm not gonna do this forever.
I get to a point where, I woke up one morning, called my mom. I was like, Mom, can I just like take a break from New York and move to Florida? And at this point, I was like, I found this Craigslist place in like a basement of this guy in Bed-Stuy, and it was just like
in New York.
Yeah. It was like $500 a month, and so it was pretty affordable. But like the guy was like, I don't want to say he's a creep because nothing bad ever happened, but he's just like, I wasn't comfortable.
It's a weird vibe.
Weird vibe. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I was just like, I need to get out.
Yeah.
And my mom was like more than happy. She's like, yeah, come to Florida. You know, you'll recharge. We'll figure it out. And I just got on a plane, like one-way ticket, and put a bunch of my stuff upstate at my dad's. And my dad and my stepdad still live upstate.
Yeah.
But I just brought my stuff up there and came to Florida.
Whoa.
Without any plan.
Yeah, so no real plan. You just,
No.
all you had was, I need to change this up.
I had my laptop
Yep.
and clothes, and I was like, I need to get out of here.
Damn.
Yeah.
And you ended up in a similar spot, like where we were at, like the...
So that's the condo like my parents had when I was growing up, but at this point, my mom and my stepdad were separated, and my mom, after I graduated high school, she had moved to Florida in her own house.
Okay.
In Tampa.
Okay,
like
so you were in Tampa area?
Yeah, like a suburb of Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like not really much to do around there.
Yeah, the Tampa burbs only recently got cool.
Yeah.
Like what, Carrollwood and New Tampa and Wesley Chapel and all that?
I have no idea. I don't know
okay.
anywhere. I was just like, I don't know like much about it. I mean, I was basically just, because I didn't have a car, I was just there.
You were where your mom was.
I was where my mom was. I was living in this house. She would go to work. I remember I had a bike, and she's like, well, you gotta get a job.
Yeah.
I was just gonna like, just let you stay here, like, and just not do anything.
So what did you do?
Well, I think we were talking about this the other day. So I thought it would be pretty easy to get hired. I had this, resume with all these New York City like restaurants.
Yeah.
And I went to Outback. I went to this place called
Mellow Mushroom.
Mellow Mushroom.
Yeah.
I went to the Mellow Mushroom. It was like, I put a resume there, and everybody was super nice, and nobody like called me back. And I was like, Mom, I don't know. I tried. Like I maybe they're just not hiring. And so like, I would just spend my days basically like I would watch like I was going through Tim and Eric at the time.
Yes.
And Always Sunny and Curb Your Enthusiasm. And like, but I started getting a bunch of British shows, and I would just go watch series all day long.
Yeah.
And eventually I was like, oh, I should download Ableton because some of my friends that were DJing were using it like to DJ with.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I should just kind of like download this and figure out how to use it.
So just like kind of with nothing to do, chilling on the computer, you're like, all right, I'm bored of watching this series. What can I mess around with?
Yeah. And I was still like writing for my blog and stuff, like reviewing albums and stuff like that. But I just downloaded it for fun. Mm-hmm. And I like started dabbling, you could use your keyboard as a piano.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And so like I would just, oh, okay, this is a kick drum and a snare drum. Like I know what that sounds like. I know like boom, boom, just like
totally,
stuff.
like very basic elements.
Very basic elements. And then I'd be like, oh, well, I want it to sound like this. Like, how do I do that? How do I make a drum sound, bigger or something? And I would just Google it on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And it'd be like, oh, well, you need to compress it. And I was like, oh, okay, compress. Well, what's that? And then I would like just gradually like kind of teach myself what I was doing.
Yeah.
Which was producing, but I didn't know that that's what I was doing. And
well, what's cool about that to me is like, yes, you didn't know what you were doing, but you knew what you were looking for.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like you're like, okay, I want this drum to sound bigger.
Yeah, but I didn't know like, because I was obsessed with music, but I'd never made it before. I'd never taken any lessons. Like I was in band like in elementary school, but like that was like the extent. And so I just started making stuff, and then I was like to my mom, I was like, Mom, I need a thing called a MIDI keyboard because I don't want to use my, keys anymore. Yeah. And but I wanted like a real synthesizer, and so on Craigslist we found this one Micro Korg. Yeah. It's like my first synth and MIDI keyboard. And so
that's cool that she supported it.
She was just, I think she like felt bad because I was like, I was trying to get work.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah, you weren't like fucking up. Like you were just kind of like in a hard spot.
Yeah. And so she's like, okay. And so I got this keyboard, and when she was at work, I would just be like, jamming out, making stuff. And I didn't have monitors like to listen to anything. I didn't know I needed those.
So just computer speakers?
So I was just listening on headphones.
Okay.
But then I was like, I really want to hear what this sounds like. And so I would burn it on a CD and bring it to my mom's car to listen to it. And I would like leave the car in there, or it's not the car in there. I'd leave the CD on there in the car, like on accident. And she would like come to me the next morning and be like, "What was that? Like you had left in the car?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just like a thing that I did." And she's like, "You did that? Like I don't understand." I was like, "Oh yeah, like I made it, on the computer."
Yeah.
And she's like, "How?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just did it." And she was like, "But how can you do that?" I was like, "Well, couldn't you do that? Like it's not." I was like, "Look, it's so easy." And she's like, "Well, like I think like you like that's something like special that you can do."
How much of a song would you make? Like how much like on those burnt CDs?
It was like all my first song, like this song called "Running," had eventually made it into a Lexus commercial.
Whoa.
I made like in my mom's house as one of the first.
Oh wow!
Songs
so you made full songs. It wasn't just like kick snare,
well,
kick snare.
I knew what I needed. I was like, well, I need drums.
Yeah.
I need bass.
Yeah.
I need verses. I need chorus. I need like a Brit. Like, cause I had just no.
Whoa. Okay, so like by the time a CD was getting burnt and going into your mom's car, it wasn't you just making sure that the kick and the snare sounded
No,
good.
was
it
like
was a whole song.
Yeah, it was like a whole song. And I remember even because I had the blog, I knew how like promo emails needed to be sent because people would send me promo emails like all day long. And so for my first songs, I put on SoundCloud, and I had the song called On VHS that I don't know if it's like still online, like maybe you could find it. But I remember I sent that to a blog, and I didn't put a bass line in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, there's these songs that I'm working on." And I was like, "I'm calling myself Computer Magic. If you could give it a listen."
That's cool. That's been your name since day one.
Oh yeah, because I just wanted a moniker that like wasn't. I didn't want it to be Danielle Johnson, and I wanted it to be kind of elusive, where like you didn't know if it was a band or not.
Yeah, it's funny you didn't go with Dan's, right?
Well, now I wish I did.
Really?
Yes, because I want people to know it's me doing everything.
Oh,
and I think that people my intention was to have it vague.
Yeah.
And now it is, and now I'm like, well, but I don't know if I want it to be vague. I want to get recognition for it, but.
That's so funny you say that, because the whole time, I mean, I know like we just met and all that, but like I was looking at it and I was like, she's brilliant, like Computer Magic, but then it's Dan's. It's two identities.
It's kind of two, yeah.
I thought that was so intentional and so brilliant. So that's funny.
It was in a way, but like now I'm like, I kind of wish it was Dan's, but.
Damn.
I don't know.
Okay, but I sidetracked it. So you were saying you sent out your first song on VHS and it didn't have a bass line.
Yeah, the guy wrote back to me. He was like, "This song doesn't even have a bass line." And I was like, "All right, thanks for the feedback."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, I need to add some bass lines to my songs." But then it was just like, just kind of experimenting, and like, I remember my mom was like, "Oh, people like music with words. Like, have you ever written any lyrics and stuff like that?" And I'm always very like I love movies and TV and like reading stories, and I was always wrote stories as a kid, so I started to write songs inspired by characters in movies, because I was like my life's so boring. In Florida, I'm not doing anything.
That's like where you found lyrical inspiration at first?
Yeah, a lot. Like, I wrote the song this is a good one. I wrote this song called Victory Gin. That was from the perspective, I forgot the guy's name, but in 1984.
Whoa.
And like the lyrics are like, the faces on the wall, because like I wrote this song Electronic Fences, which is about like, I'm pretty sure like from Deckard's perspective in Blade Runner.
What?
But I was like really obsessed with like sci-fi at the time, and so I wanted that to be my whole aesthetic. And so then I started to write lyrics and sing, which I hated singing, but I was like, I'm just gonna try and do it.
So, okay, so at this point I have to stop because this is actually special and like clearly you were making full songs and your mom said it. So, this was all happening.
Yes.
And you're messing around on Ableton and you're
Yes.
figuring it out and you learn to put a bass line in there, you burn it on a CD, you listen, you know what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And your mom was kind of the one that went to you and she was just like, yo, you know, people can't normally do this.
Yeah,
right?
she kind of was, because I just thought anybody was able to, you know, if I heard a song, I could find the bass line on the
Yeah.
keyboard. It
Yeah.
would take me some time, but I could like figure it out.
Right.
I could figure out the drums. Like would be super easy for me to find all the elements and put them together. And I thought it was just something that anybody was able to do. Like I didn't know it was like
Right.
any
'Cause
kind of talent.
That's special. Like that's crazy
Yeah,
because
I didn't know.
if you hadn't been, and we were talking about this a little bit, but like if you hadn't just been bored in Florida messing around, you wouldn't have known that. And then if you hadn't had your mom that just said the somewhat obvious to anyone else of just like, hey, you know this is special, you might not have ever even known
No,
that was,
yeah.
but you might have stopped because you're like, well, this is just me
This
messing
is
around.
stupid, yeah.
And not known that you had an ability that
I-
was actually really special.
No, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy like the chain of events that happen.
That's so nuts. Okay, so
that
you
yeah.
are encouraged enough and you realize like, okay, cool, I can make a full song and this is
Yeah.
something that I should keep doing.
Yeah, so at that point I started to put it up online. I
Yeah.
would put it on SoundCloud.
And you'd send it to blogs as well?
Yeah, I knew how to formulate a promo email.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Danielle Danzy Johnson from upstate New York, 21 years old. Like I knew all the
Yes.
things that I had that people would want to know about an artist. And I sent it out to blogs, and eventually this blog called Stereo Gum
Whoa.
posted me as like band to watch.
That's big. Stereo,
It was
especially
big.
depending on the year, that's
Yeah, it was
big.
huge. And then all my friends were hitting me up like, wait, you're making music? Like what? I was like, yeah. And so after that, I was getting asked to like play shows in New York.
yeah.
And I was still in Florida. And I was like, Mom, like people are asking me to play a show in New York. Like maybe I should go back to New York. And she's like supported the like music, but she's like, but like you need to still figure out like, what you're going to do. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, I'll just go back and I'll like work, at restaurants and stuff. And I'll just like see what happens with music. And at that time when Stereo Gum posted me as band to watch, this label called Black Iris reached out to me and wanted to re-record 4 of my songs in a studio,
Uh-huh.
and put it out on an EP, like re-record the songs and release them, like, produced by somebody like fancy
Yeah.
and everything. And that was in LA, and I never like really even I never went to LA before.
Yeah.
And so things were like kind of more serious than they were. I was like, there's this label that wants me to go to LA and people are asking me to play shows in New York. And so I moved back to New York into my friends. My friend happened to have an extra room.
Yeah.
And this friend, I had this guy, Mike, like he was in Florida that I actually wanted to see while I'm here.
Oh, tight.
But he was one of my really good friends, and I would go over his house all the time, and we would all play video games together anyways. So it was like, oh, this is serendipitous. Like, Mike has a room open, and I love being over there, and I'll just move back to New York, and things will happen. And so I moved back.
Were you kind of feeling it at that time? Like, did you have like some confidence to like,
Well, I
yo,
was
this is
just-
going to be a thing?
Well, once I started making music, I was like, and people didn't hate it.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was a big possibility. Like I could put it up and people could be like, what the hell is this?
Totally.
But it was just when it was validated in some way, then I was like, oh, well, this is what I'm meant to do. Like
That's sick.
it was just like, I don't think I realized, like it finally felt like, oh, like I've been living in New York City, like kind of networking with DJing and meeting people, and I know how to like formulate, like everything was just too kind of
Okay.
in place. And I
I'm
was like,
glad though.
yeah.
I'm glad it clicked, right? Because like that it feels meant to be. And I'm so glad you did take that initiative and take the risk of like, maybe I should go back and play shows.
Yeah. I didn't know what was going to happen and if I was going to be like, you know, successful at it. But I was like, oh, like I know how to do something that I don't think like everybody can do. And so like I need to at least try and make this work. And so
you knew to a degree, like you found your thing.
yes.
Cool. Dope. Okay. So you go back to New York.
Yes.
Did you play those shows?
Yes, I played, which was the most terrifying experience of my entire life. So I flew back to New York, and my first show was at this place called Glasslands,
Okay.
which isn't there anymore.
What part of New York?
In Brooklyn.
Oh, wow. Cool.
But so I flew back to New York, and I had my two best friends, this guy Justin and James. They played bass and guitar, and I didn't have bass and guitar in any of my songs. And I was like, "Do you guys just want to like come and like?" Because I didn't want to be on stage by myself. So I was like, "Can you just like just play on top of the songs or something? Like, just kind of go along with it." And they did, and the first show was me, a bassist, and a guitarist. And I was so awkward.
What year?
It's probably like 2011 or something.
Okay.
But then, yeah, so then after that, and then that label had asked me to go out to LA. And at this point, I didn't have any idea what I wanted for Computer Magic. Like, I was just newly making music. And went out to LA. I was like, oh, can my friends come? Like, they're going to play like guitar and bass. And they were like, really? Okay. So then they came. So this one record, Electronic Fences, is like very like New Order-y or like Joy Division-y, where it's like guitar and bass. And
whoa.
And then I started seeing this guy at the time who I'm still friends with, but like he was like, oh, you should have a drummer. I can be your drummer. And I was like, okay. So then like I had a drummer, and
so you like went full band.
And then it became full band, and Computer Magic was then
I dropped a coaster.
It's okay. Well, at least you respect wood with that coaster.
I tried to respect wood. Computer Magic became full band.
But yeah, so we were playing shows as a full band, but I would still
I set the cup on the floor. For the listener, the cup is on the floor now.
Cup's on the floor. What was I going to say? Yeah, so Computer Magic became a full band, and we were playing shows, but I was still writing all the stuff by myself on my laptop. And then I got approached by a Japanese label.
Oh, cool.
Because at the time, I was just like, I was so prolific. I would make like 5 songs in like 2 months, and then I put up an EP, and then 8 more songs in another few months, and then put up another EP.
Because this is kind of before like Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, but like
it was mostly like SoundCloud.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, where are you uploading?
So I was uploading on SoundCloud.
Yep.
And I would let people download it for free.
Yeah.
And then I would put it, because I know like when I was a kid, I was pirating, like torrenting so much stuff.
Yeah.
I was like,
we all did. That's like part of the generation.
Yeah. So I was like, the least I can do is like, here, take it for free.
Completely. That's sick.
Like I remember like back in the day, like this is kind of going on a tangent, but like Metallica was like so against torrenting. But then I remember like Trent Reznor had his discography Pirate Bay link like on the Nine Inch Nails like website. He was like, fuck it, like you're gonna get it anyway.
That was like a very controversial point though. And especially because like with now like iPhones and all that, you just open Spotify, you stream. But before, torrenting and downloading was so important because that's like right when we were getting MP3 players. So like if you wanted your iPod to have good music, you had to find a way to download it.
Yeah.
So okay, so you'd write all these EPs.
Yeah.
You'd release quite a lot. You'd put it up for free on SoundCloud where you could download.
I would put it up for free for a certain period of time, and then I would put it on to TuneCore, which is like a digital distribution company.
Yeah.
Then it would go on iTunes and I want to say Apple Music, but there was no Apple Music.
No, it's just iTunes.
So then I was approached by a Japanese label.
Yeah.
And they were just like, They were called Tugboat Records.
Tight.
Are called Tugboat Records.
It's a good name.
And they were like, hey, we want to compile your EPs into a record and put it out in Japan. And at this time, I had no label. Like at that one label put out an EP they had put it up and put it on vinyl and stuff. And I listen to it now and I like it, but back then I didn't like it because I thought it wasn't like a representation of me, like some other person produced it, and like I felt like very rushed.
Yeah, because that's got to be a crazy experience. Like you're going from a brand new artist just learning and writing your own music to being flown out to LA, working with a producer, recording with other musicians.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like I like it now, but like so I still had like all the songs that I had re-recorded. I still had my versions up on like there was running Electronic Fences EP and then running the Hiding from Our Time version, which is like the version that I originally put out.
Oh, whoa.
And the version that I did was the one that I licensed to Lexus, not the one that they re-recorded. And so like it was. So anyway, I had no ties to any type of label.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, I'll do a Japan exclusive tour or a Japan exclusive record.
Sick.
We're
recording at Frank's house and we're just hanging out. Hunter was here, his pup, and his cat has something to say. It's fine.
That was really cute. I hope that you hear it in the...
Honestly, me too. I recorded one outside with my friend. Like it was like just a nice day and we're like, yo, let's record this outside. And I was so stressed that the outside noises would be like so loud and you can barely hear them. So like, I don't even know. But
Aww.
I hope.
Meow.
Oh, there. Frank's back. We're hanging out with Frank too.
Yeah.
Okay, so you record the Japan exclusive album.
Yeah, so... Well, actually, I didn't even record it. It was
you just licensed? It was done.
so easy. Yeah, I just basically licensed my songs that I'd already put out to them under like Japan exclusive release.
Mm-hmm.
New artwork. The name of the record was Scientific Experience.
Tight.
And yeah, that came out, and then I toured there, and it was like number 5 on iTunes or something like that.
Okay, pause.
And it was like
that's fucking crazy because you were like you come back to New York, you play shows, you go out to LA, like clearly there's some traction and you're like, okay, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But then you license songs in Japan, they put together an album and it comes out top 5 and you do a tour all the way across the world.
Yeah, it was
insane.
It was really surreal because like prior to this, like I hadn't really left the country. Like I had to get my passport when I started making music, and like I never, like I liked Japanese culture.
Yeah.
I wasn't like a Japanophile, like super into it, and so like for me to be able to go there was like just something that I never even had imagined before, and so like I was like just all of a sudden dropped in this place where like people and like going over there like. There was like a line to like get into the first show. It was like people, there was a bunch of people there. It was just like such a different, because I was still I was like hustling in New York.
Yeah.
And then to go there, and then it was like, at the Tower Records, you know, like at the end of, I mean, there's no CD places over here anymore.
Yeah.
But like, you know, that the ends of the aisle, there's like the stand.
That's like the Focus Records.
The Focus Records, yeah. But it would be like me with Scientific Experience, like Computer Magic, like right at the ends of the aisle. And it was, I don't know, it was pretty surreal. And
that's crazy. Yeah. And how old were you when you went there for the first time?
Probably like 22, 23.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So like going from like not being able to get service jobs in Florida and like whatever, like waiting tables, New York, playing little bits of shows to like, okay, cool, you're 22, 23 years old, you fly to Japan and your album's just everywhere and there's people lining up.
It was pretty crazy. Like even like talking about it to you now, I just still feel like it's not my life. Like it's really weird.
Because that has to be like the moment where it's like, okay, like I guess this is real, believe it or not.
I don't don't think it. I feel like even right now, I don't feel like it's real.
That's
like I don't know
honestly
if
so
that's like,
sick. That's so sick.
I feel like I'm just like kind of riding the way, like this wave of life, and I'm just like, I guess this is happening right now.
Well, the
I don't
funny part
know.
about that to me is like we talked, we became friends, we met, and I hadn't heard your music. And like all too often you'll meet somebody that's like, oh yeah, I'm doing music, and then you hear it and you're like, oh, okay. And it's like, okay or whatever. But like Frank and I were talking about it, we're like, yo, like, oh shit, like this is good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So for it to be like, I just love how genuinely humble you are about it because you obviously loved music. Like you've been writing about it and
Yeah.
consuming it forever. But the fact that you were able to make what you wanted to and like
Yeah.
execute this vision and it's good. And then like people respond well to it. Like
Yeah.
I love that you're so humble because you accidentally or like it or not made something really fucking cool.
Thank you.
Okay, damn. So Japan first tour,
So
you
Japan,
go there.
Japan first tour. It's amazing, and then I come back to the U.S. and it's like, all right, back to reality. Still restaurant jobs, like
Whoa.
still, playing shows. There's not that many people there. Touring like somewhat, and then in the U.S. I keep releasing records.
Mm-hmm.
And Japan asked me to put out another record. So basically what would happen was I just put stuff, EPs and stuff online.
Yep.
And then Japan would be like, let's compile this
Tight.
into another record. So I ended up putting out, I don't know, like 4 records or something like that in Japan.
Yeah.
And then in the US, all of a sudden I get this licensing deal with this company.
Yeah.
And they got me first like an Aria Casino ad in Las Vegas.
Whoa.
For running that song
Oh,
that I had made in
crazy.
Florida.
Aria's nice. That's a good
And
hotel.
And then, which was like the most money I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Oh, like corporate. I can only
Crazy.
imagine because you're going
And
from like getting little checks of
from
royalties
yeah.
or whatever to
I'm
like,
not even, I mean, I was barely getting royalties, anything from like people buying music. I still had to work like at a restaurant like 5 days a
Yeah.
week. And the first time got this check and it was enough to where like I didn't have to work for a while, and I was like, all right, well, I'm quitting my restaurant job.
So sick.
And then I got another ad
Yeah.
for Lexus. And then I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, this is the point. So I was always waiting for a point where I could go into a real studio,
Yeah.
record like with really cool analog synths with somebody
Yeah.
that like knows how to like EQ and just I want the record, my first debut record, to sound
Yeah.
amazing. And so, because at this point I just been releasing EPs
Right.
and compilation records in Japan.
Yeah.
And so with the Lexus money, I went to the studio with this guy, Claudius Mittendorfer, who had worked with like Block Party and Neon Indian and Interpol and Franz Ferdinand and all these bands.
So good.
And
Good choice.
Yeah, he was great. And I learned like so much from him also. But we recorded this record called Davos, and I released it. I wanted to release it on my own label.
Yeah.
And so I paid for the production of the vinyls, paid for my own PR, just with the ad. Like
Yeah.
basically spent all the money on videos. Like,
Yeah, but
That's
that's,
why-
so
'cause-
sick.
because we were talking about earlier, or maybe it was like with Frank, like that how it looks super professional.
Yeah.
And it looks that way because like all the licensing money I just reinvest in my own stuff. And
Yeah.
so Davos was my debut record here.
And that
but
came out when?
it came out in 2015.
Okay.
And in Japan it was like my, I don't know, like 5th or 6th record or something like that.
By that time,
Yeah, yeah.
Japan was.
So by that time it was like Computer Magic was known in Japan. It's
you're
just like another
a
record
household
coming out.
name.
So Davos came out, and it was because was not operating as a big label. It was just like me, like DIY, but like a
Right.
better version of DIY. And so I think like people started knowing about Computer Magic, but like it wasn't marketed like a big label has a big budget, and I have, like an indie label budget.
Totally.
And so it's like it more people knew about me, but not like crazy.
Yeah.
But then between that time, I just started making more music. And then I started getting asked in Japan to write music specifically as Computer Magic for Japanese brands.
Yeah.
Because Computer Magic was at a point where it was like a household name.
Yeah.
And so like if I made a song and it aired on TV, people would be like, oh, Computer Magic made the song.
That's unreal. That is so cool.
It's so weird. It's so crazy, like, to just imagine. Because I'm not over there to, like, see the commercials, really. And so I did, like, a mayonnaise commercial there, salad dressing, Panasonic. I just recently did one for Body Mente, which is this, like, Japanese energy drink type of thing.
Damn.
And, yeah, so then that was, like, a good source, you know, like, income to
that's
survive.
Amazing. Like, because that's... You said a couple things that stood out to me in this. Like, I guess, what a crazy cool thing to happen where you do start doing deals and getting syncs and things that. Because a lot of musicians will chase that and not get it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like your music just lent itself to being perfect for that. And then, like, the right people, like, you aligned with the right people and did that.
Yeah, definitely super lucky.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then that did give you, I mean, I just learned this, but, like, that's cool that you took that money, reinvested it into Computer Magic.
Yeah.
Because that's now, like, you have your project and you can make all of your music, but you can also survive and do something still creative and cool just by doing different things for brands as well.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
It's cool, but it's definitely, like, ups and downs because the syncs don't always come.
Right.
So I was really, like, riding high for a while there and just like, oh, I'm going to have this big budget video and I'm going to do this and this and this. And then, like, now it's like that the licensing company that I was on, like, just went out under. Oh. So I had to change to a new licensing company. And so now it's, like, not as lucky as I have been.
Damn. Like, you had, like, a good squad there and you almost didn't know.
But they just, like, stopped. They just stopped their company. Yeah. And so, like, licensing is kind of weird because it could, like, come in, and then it could be like, oh, okay, well, now what do I do for money?
Yeah.
But it's like I'm super lucky to have ever gotten that stuff. But now myself will be, like, sometimes in the background of, like, TV shows or something like that. But so since Davos, then I put out this record, Dance. Which was just... I was going to change my name to Dan's.
Okay. Yeah, because I noticed that you had an album called Dan's, and I was like, all right, I see you.
Well, I was going to change my name. I was going to put the record out as Dan's and have it be self-titled. Because the songs were a lot darker than to me, they were, like, darker than my other music. But I was like, no, I had already made a name for myself in Japan with Computer Magic, and I feel like people are going to see past me just, like, this weird, like, why would I change it now? And a part of me was like, wanted to change it because I was like, well, maybe Computer Magic, the name is just not accessible, because when I talked to an older person, it was like, oh, Computer Magic, it's like, what are you, like, Skrillex or something? You know what I mean? Like, people don't, it's not as accessible as, like, dance is very, like, I don't know. I thought that maybe I should change to something where someone can't pin me in a corner, because I'm not just electronic. Like, there's a lot of songs I make that are, like, even, like, rock oriented.
Yeah.
But with a name like Computer Magic, it's not, you might not know that unless you actually take the time to listen to the songs. So I thought, like, maybe I should, release it as Dance, but instead of doing that, I just titled the record Dance.
Yeah.
So that was the reason behind that record.
Yeah, that's so funny to me because I see what you're saying. I absolutely get it.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I think that Computer Magic just sounds cool. Like, it's so rare to find names that just sound cool, and I feel like it could be anything.
Yeah.
And, like, especially coming from writing with blogs and, like, I feel like it's the perfect name for, I guess what you do in the sense of I think it could be anything.
Yeah.
And I think that computer magic, like it's, oh, that's Dan's. Like that's computer magic. Like,
Yeah.
That's sick to me. So that's so funny that
Oh,
you
that's
say
cool.
that. I think that that's kind of proof that we overthink our own things, right?
Oh yeah, I overthink everything. I'm
Same,
like too
same.
much.
It takes me forever to name anything, whatever. But like, I just find that funny because you're explaining that to me. Whereas my first impression, everything you told me, like when I was like, "Oh, computer magic," I was like, "That's fucking sick."
Oh, cool.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so I guess like that pretty much like I guess what I want to know more of is that was brilliant that you took that money from your brand or the sync deals and like all of that, put it into the first album. Then you kind of did the same thing with Dan's, like you
Yeah,
did another
so-
professionally recorded album.
So no, so that
Oh.
one okay, so with Davos,
Yes.
I had spent so much money
Yeah.
to get this record made. Like going into studios, getting it mastered professionally, mixed professionally, like a crazy amount of money that, and I didn't get, not that my intention was to get syncs,
Yeah.
but I looked back and I was like, wow, the song that I made in my mom's closet, basically. Like I was so scared to make music. I would go into her closet because I didn't want her to hear me singing.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this song I wasn't fancy about.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, I made it without having anything. I didn't even listen to it on monitors.
Yeah.
And it's like one of my biggest songs. So it's like, do I think that I need all this extra stuff?
Whoa.
Is that in my head?
Yeah.
And I feel like I need to outsource because I don't believe in myself. Like, can I just do it by
Whoa.
myself? And so with dance, I was like, I'm just going to do this myself.
That's
And
sick.
actually, just telling you this right now, I'm going through this because I just finished like my new record,
Yeah.
and I'm toying like, do I need somebody to mix it and master it, or like, can I do it myself? Like, but am I gonna regret if I don't like get it done, professionally? But like, maybe I am a professional, So it's like a weird, thing to
I
deal
love
with.
that point of conversation because especially for me, like I've worked in music in some capacity for about 10 years now and never made music.
Yeah.
And when I watch my friends make things, like when I watch my friends who are artists, to me, I can't tell the difference. Like obviously you can like if somebody's bad at mastering or mixing, like
Yeah.
you're going to hear it, you can tell.
Yeah.
But I watch my artistic friends struggle with that where it's almost like you can't believe that your product is good enough, so you have to send it to a professional. I did air
Yes.
quotes for the listener.
Yeah.
So like that's cool to hear you explain that so candidly, and it's
Yeah.
cool to hear you explain like, yeah, you had great success with a song you recorded in a closet,
Yeah.
and then had Davos not
Yeah,
get
so
syncs.
so I think it's like and then I think about like artists like Daniel Johnston. You know who that is?
I don't.
So he's like, he made this music that's like, is very lo-fi,
Yeah.
but it's like his melodies are really catchy. And like all he had was like a tape deck, I think, that he was like recording into. And just like when you think about all these like lo-fi recordings, like in the 60s when they didn't have like all the, fancy technology that they have now, like
Yep.
I think like it's not about all the like the fancy stuff. It's just like like if the song's good,
Yeah.
if it's a good song, people are gonna like it. So I think instead of like dressing up a song, you just I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it
but,
does
like,
make sense, and I feel like as we talk about it, I think that as a consumer, like I like things that are honest. I like things that just sound real and honest, and
Yeah.
think about like an industry or something that you're not a part of just like if I don't know, you watch some YouTube videos and stuff like that, you watch people stream video games and like maybe they don't have the best setups, but if they're funny, if they're charismatic, we both watch Frank stream
Yeah.
and you don't even fully know the ins and outs of Magic the Gathering. You just like the character that he is and like his personality.
That's true.
So I think that's like that with music, right? It's like if it feels honest, if it feels real,
Yeah.
that's what matters.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I agree.
So, okay, so you've had both experiences of working professionally in studios, all of that.
Yeah.
And since 2015, you've obviously recorded and put out a lot more music.
Yeah, I released Dance in 2017. and I released Dance in 2018, and in 20 so Davos 2015.
Yep.
Then I released an EP, Obscure But Visible, which I mix. So everything else I mix and master myself, with the exception of Davos,
Tight.
or produced or whatever. And that early one when I went out to LA.
Mm.
So, but yeah, after Davos, I released Obscure But Visible in 2016.
Yep.
And then 2017, I released a compilation record called Super Rare. That was like just songs that I never finished, that I was like, you know what? I'm just going to finish all these and release them as a compilation. And I put all my Japanese B-sides on there.
Oh, cool.
So it's like Super Rare, a compilation of B-sides and Japanese rarities.
Damn.
And
okay.
then 2018 was Dance, and we're in 2019 now, and I've just finished like 12 songs.
Oh, so there's new music coming.
Oh, yeah. I finished 12 songs, but now I'm just like, you know, do I wait for like a big chunk of change to get it very, you know, make these big budget videos like Davos and like get it mixed and mastered professionally and like be really fancy about it? Like, do I just wait on that, or do I just like finish the songs myself and just, you know, do it and put it out? And so like I'm just taking time and like really finessing. Like I think at this point in my career, I've learned enough about production and just like labels and all this stuff, and I felt like, not that I was not putting my all into everything that I've ever done, but I feel like with my other songs, I would make a song, be happy with it, and release it. And like with these songs, it's like I'm literally each second of the song like, is this the best that I can do? And I'm like pushing myself harder, like with these songs. Also because I'm 30 now, and I know that there's not a limit to like a person's career, but I'm just like, I need, like, this needs to be like the best record I've done. And so it's like a lot of pressure on myself, but I feel like it's good and that I'm putting that much pressure on myself. So I'm just like, now I'm like making sure I'm 100% happy with everything. And so once that's done and I figure out if I'm going to mix it and master it myself, I'll release it. But it's coming. I just don't know when.
I love that you say that, though, and it kind of answers a couple of the questions that I had, just because there are some artists or people or anybody that I almost worry about, because like their standard is just like, well, you could probably like polish that up a bit. And again, we've only really just met, and I've only really like just discovered the project, but like you, me, and Frank were talking about, there is this standard of quality where however you did it, like what you see online and like your public perception is really polished and really good, and the music holds up. So it's cool to hear you speak so honestly about like, I need to figure this out, I'm pushing myself, I have this and this, because I'm not worried about you. Like, I don't worry about that, right? Like, I'm excited, not worried, where I'm like, well, whatever it is, whatever your standard of quality is, this is going to be sick.
Yeah.
So like,
I hope so.
No, but like, that's cool, right? Like, I love hearing how it all evolved. And I think that your honest love for music, and at least as I'm hearing the story and putting pieces together in my head, like the reason why there was success, the whatever crazy talent you have to be able to make music the way you do and just hear it, I think that applies to the image of your whole brand and project as well, where like maybe like in a candid conversation, you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but like whatever that standard is, or like whatever that aside, what you put out to the public looks great and is so cool. So that's cool to hear how that happens, I guess.
Yeah.
I hope I expressed that in some way. My other question for you is, we were talking like very specifically about like synthesizers and all that, right? Like,
yes.
So
the other day,
you kind of explain it in talking about like the blog, like the music blog, and just obsessing. But throughout the process of being the musician that you are, you've learned quite a lot about some of the instruments that you use and all that. Because a lot of your music is synth driven or has like all sorts of cool samples or.
So when I first started making music, a lot of it was, software synths.
Yeah.
Like on Ableton.
Better way to say it, yeah. Software.
And yeah, so like a lot of digital sounds, a lot of plugins, software synths, and then I got the Microkorg, and then I got like a Moog Voyager was one of my first synths. And then I started to become obsessed with analog sound.
Yeah.
And so I became obsessed with the idea that an analog waveform versus a digital waveform sounds better. And there's like YouTube videos that will like be like, no, it's exactly the same thing. But I'm like, no, well, if you zoom in, like a analog waveform like looks like a wave.
Whoa.
And a digital waveform is made with like ones and zeros, like by a computer. And so like that waveform looks like steps.
Oh,
up
wow.
and down,
so on a
like,
very microscopic level.
So to me, so like what you and me speaking right now is like an analog signal.
Right.
Going into the microphone.
But it's going
a guitar
digital.
is like an analog signal.
Right.
A digital synth is a digital signal, and so it's computerized. An analog synth is like an analog signal.
Oh.
So I'm like, analog synths, that's why music from like progressive rock in the 70s sounds so warm when there's an analog synth, or that's why it does sound so warm, is because like, well, first of all, it's going to tape and all that.
Yeah.
But also like the synths back then were all analog. And so I'm like, maybe if I just use all analog synths, like my stuff is going to sound like super warm and like real. Because I feel like when I listen to a lot of like pop music, not that it's missing like a warmness, but I'm just like, I don't know, I want to just use analog synths. And so I got really obsessed with that.
Whoa.
And yeah,
so
like,
what music of yours is recorded with analog synths?
So all of Dan's, pretty much.
Wow.
A lot of Davos. Like there was very little. So like there was still some software synths, but like mainly analog. But like Dan's was all analog, and then this record coming up is all analog synths.
Oh, cool. So this is like another kind of part of you like finding yourself, like where you found this piece and you're like, yo.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. And I become obsessive with it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. Even like the drum machine, I rented out the studio. It was kind of like serendipitous, but the studio in Greenpoint was doing renovations.
Yeah.
And I wanted to rent out like this really nice Neumann mic that like only really great studios have. And I was like, hey, can I borrow this? I just want to do vocals on a few songs.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah. Is there anything else that you need? Because we're renovating the studio.
No way.
And I was like, yeah, I'll take that. I can look after that 808 if you want. And so, like, they gave me an original, analog 808, which is like $5,000 to use. And that's like on every song.
Wait, I'm sorry, 5,000 to use, not to buy?
Or to buy.
I was like,
not to use,
how
not
much
to use.
is it to
no.
buy?
No.
Okay.
But yeah, so all the songs, it's like original 808. And then I'm using Prophet 6, which is all analog, a Moog Minotaur, a Moog Mother 32, and I think that's all. It's all the same synths on every song, but they all sound like super different. But I wanted the record to like, go like sound like a piece, and
That's
so I wanted to
cool.
use like the same, like vibe or whatever.
Yeah. Is this going to be one of those things where all my musical friends listen to this and they're like, yo, that's sick?
I hope so. I hope so, yeah. But so with the synthesizer stuff, I started this. I was showing you the other day that like random side Instagram account, Synth History.
Yeah.
I just started for fun, and it's just this account where I talk about vintage synthesizers and musicians who use them. Whoa. And so it's pretty much like pre 1990. So it's like all older stuff.
That's so cool because like we were talking about it, and it's such a cool idea. We were talking about it's just nice to have a creative outlet that isn't your name, and you can just make, for you love synths, so it's fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Like of course you'll post on an account,
and I'm like learning while I'm looking up each post.
Yeah.
And like finding all these like articles that I can reference. I'm like teaching myself.
It's amazing. But I also didn't realize that defines so much of computer magic now, that's become so much a part of your sound and so much of the inspiration.
Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Damn.
They go together a little bit.
I would say. It's good, Frank. Frank's hanging out with us too. So, did I miss anything? Like, I feel like that's pretty much the story. Like, I hope that I didn't skip any crazy cool career highlights or anything.
I don't think so. I'm trying to think so myself, but I think that's like the story.
I mean, you still go back to Japan, right? Anytime
Yeah.
you'll release albums, you'll go out there and you'll tour, right?
Yeah, like when I release this record, I'll probably go out there. I usually put like some bonus tracks on the Japan CD.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a different album cover.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably go back to Japan. We'll tour the US. I've never toured Europe before.
Wow.
So hopefully that happens. That'd be fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure after you've done this for this long, you definitely have a European fan base that would be stoked on that.
That would be cool. I played in Moscow once.
Whoa.
Which is interesting.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so hopefully tour. And yeah, I can't wait to get the record out.
Yeah,
At this point, I'm just like, because I've been working on the songs for like a year.
Oh, wow. So it's
time.
You're getting there.
I know, and I'm such a, not a worrywart, but I'm just like, I don't want anything to happen where I can't release the songs. And so I'm just like, I need to get them out as soon as I can.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get them out before I'm like 100% content with them. So I'm just like working hard.
I get that in a sense of I understand that my other friends that make music feel that way too.
Yeah.
Where I'll listen and I'll be like, this is sick, put it out. What are you talking about? I'm like, you don't understand. This needs to be perfect. This needs to be perfect. And like, I do get it. Because like once you ship it, it's out, right?
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
Oh, there's still songs I listen to where I'm like, oh, I should have changed that.
Yeah.
It's like nothing you can do.
So many of my friends will say that to me. Like, what are you talking about? That sounds sick. But it just is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
So the last piece that I always do is if you could go back in time, and this is completely up to you.
Okay.
But like a part in your life where you had some amount of like uncertainty, or maybe the most amount of uncertainty. Like if you could go back to that version of yourself where you didn't know what you were going to do and you're just figuring it out, if you could then go to that person that you are now and give that version of yourself some of advice,
Yeah.
where do you go back to and what do you say to that self?
So I don't know at what point, because there's always been a point, maybe like a few times a year where I'm like, even now, like I still doubt myself or whatever, but I would just go back to, I think the hardest point, 2 years, in 2017, I was going through a hard time, but I would say like 21-year-old me, like when I went to Florida and I was just like, my life was just, did not know what I want to do, just like to hang in there and things will be okay. Just, I think like for me, the most important thing was always just like be able to do what I love, and then to be able to like find something that, like my mom is always like, are you working right now, honey? Like, did I bother you? I'm like, I'm not, I don't see this as work. Like, I'm just like having fun. But I would just tell myself to hang in there and to just keep doing what I love doing. And yeah.
That's cool. That's cool to hear that from you, especially because like you are so honest and candid about the fact where you're like, I still can't believe it.
Yeah.
So it's cool that you did find your thing, and that kid that was obsessing over music blogs, and like you found that sound, you found analog synths, you found just you. Like Computer Magic became its own thing. Like you have your inspirations and it's very defined, and you hung in there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, I think we did the thing.
Yay, we did it.
This was sick. I'm so glad this worked out.
Yeah,
like,
me too. Thanks, Frank, for hooking up.
Hey, thanks, bud. Thanks for having good friends, Frank. He said, I'm glad we're able to synth up, like sync up. All right. There it is.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So there you have it. Dan's or Computer Magic, my new friend. I really like this episode. It's sometimes so fun to meet somebody that you really don't know the story of at all and be so pleasantly surprised and find out all these new things. And that was exactly what this episode was for me. So I really, really loved it. I hope you did too. if you did, please share it on both ends. It helps so much. Like, I want to see her project keep going crazier. I mean, she's already made so much of a name for herself and is doing so well. But I really think that this might be a genre that not all of my listeners know. If you aren't familiar, please go listen because it's so good. You can find her everywhere. Just Google Computer Magic, Spotify, Apple Music, Computer Magic. Her Instagram is Danz, DANZ_CM. And then her Twitter is ZDanz, so ZDANZ. If you did like it, make sure to share the episode, tag her, follow her, let her know, all that good stuff. As always, I'm Andrew_FTW. Think that's about all. I'm going to work on getting you guys more episodes. Again, I'm kind of still down and out with the old broken leg, but as many episodes as I can, as many people as I can find down here in Florida. Maybe I'll do some episodes where I call and do some stuff over the phone, 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 and do some stuff